All right, rock and roll. Welcome to the Tuesday, February 11th. Wow, Valentine's Day is just around the corner there, all you happy human beings of 2025. Wow. January, I hardly knew you. Wow, here we go. So the Super Bowl's over. We of course, we have to have some controversy from the president. We're going to get into that in our first story here today. But if you could, first and foremost, please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave some comments. I'll try to respond to them on the air. I'm going to try. I'm in Vegas this week. I brought my parents up here for a little vacation. Seems like I'm here in Vegas more than I am in Southern California. I guess I'm like the birds. I'm trying to get to a warmer weather. Like I'm not spoiled in Southern California. You know, I literally, when I meet with super producer Stacy, and it's 65, we're like, oh my gosh, how do humans live in this? I mean, we're looking for polar bears and penguins. Oh, we're so spoiled. Anybody out there on the East Coast or maybe in another country, well, don't come to California. No, please don't. It's already expensive enough. No, it's a great place. It's the Mecca. I can't imagine anywhere else I'd rather live. You know, I talk to friends and I think, you know, maybe one day I live in Manhattan or maybe I move to Santa Monica. I don't know. I got such a great group of friends. It's so hard to leave that. But, you know, I like North Carolina. I love North Carolina, actually. It's probably next to Nevada and California. It's my favorite place in the United States. So let's start off with the price of eggs. And they are skyrocketing at a level we haven't seen. Even Joe Biden's like, wow, that's some inflation. So yesterday, we got limits on eggs from Trader Joe's and Costco. Trader Joe's instituted at its 600 locations 1 dozen per customer per day. Now, for all you who may be new to what's going on, President Trump for a year and a half said prices were going to be lowered on day one. Eggs are going through the roof, literally, and you can't get them anymore. And I'm going to do a Final Jeopardy here for you. What does this eerily sound like? Prices rising and we can't get the commodity that we want. Oh, yeah. It sounds like 2020 during COVID. You know, when everybody was like, are you better off 4 years ago? And I was looking around going, we couldn't get water in the store. We couldn't get toilet paper. We couldn't get paper towels. We couldn't get effing cheese. And every week there was a new scarce item, right? And the Republicans said, well, that's just the hoarders. Well, you know, that's the free market system, you know? And Trump got soundly defeated by Joe Biden because he totally, ineptly handled the COVID vaccine. If he would have just come out and told people, hey, look, this is going to be a real tough slog. Stay with me. We'll get there. He would have beat Joe. But so many people were so tired of him denying it, injecting bleach, all the other nonsense, and rabble-rousel, whatever that word is. I'm going to have to work on that. Break me out of thesaurus. Maybe somebody can give me a new word. But, you know, he ignored it, and he's ignoring this HSN1 bird flu. It is getting into cattle. I just read a story in CNN today about how it's infecting the cattle here in Nevada. And this is a guy who put Robert Kennedy as the director of Health and Human Services, the guy who denies vaccines, talks about herd immunity, did heroin for 14 years, just a real winner, you know, just the kind of guy you want your daughter to date. You know, if his last name wasn't Kennedy, I think he'd be in jail. He'd be at Leavenworth. So we are dealing with shortages on eggs. The Waffle House and other assorted places, which we documented the other day, are putting egg surcharges. Actually, there was an egg surcharge at this hotel I'm in Las Vegas, which really surprised me. And it is eerily similar to the path we've already been down. Now, this is what the president should be dealing with. What is the president actually doing? God bless him. He's not dealing with that. He's dealing with the Super Bowl. And let's go to Mar-a-Lago, and let's go to New Orleans, and let's go back to Mar-a-Lago, right? Yeah, he goes to the Super Bowl. Now, you probably saw a little of what this incredible executive was doing. Now, I have a question, just first and foremost, and I brought it up yesterday in the podcast, is if he's so worried about cutting government waste, why did we have a flyover at a dome? Nobody at the game could see the flyover. So why did we have a flyover? Why did we spend millions of dollars on fuel, on pilots, on all that stuff to fly over a stadium that's covered? Nobody there could see it. Personally, I don't even care if you could see it. I don't care if it's at the Rose Bowl or at Giant Stadium and people could see it. Why are we doing that? Oh, because it's a promo for the military. Got to pimp the military. We can't get health care, but man, you keep pumping that military, man. Don't you forget it. So, before the game, Trump backed Kansas City. There's photographs of him shaking hands with some of the Chief players. Like most things that Trump backed, it lost. I'm not sure, but I think Philadelphia just scored again. I mean, really, this was a one-sided thing. This was a real one-sided thing. And Trump, once again asserting that he is the winner, has to leave early, but that's not enough for my man. No. He leaves early, and I think the reason he did is because they had the early bird dinner at Shoney's for elderly folks. You know how they all eat at 5:30. You know, he had to get out of there. He had to get his Big Mac or what other unhealthy thing. Like, what's this guy's cholesterol count? Let's see some real meds. Let's see some medical data on what this guy's really got going on. Trust me, he ain't drinking water. I can tell you that. And like most real men who have a conflict with a strong, independent woman, I'm being sarcastic, he is the pussy of all pussies, and he goes to social media to bash the great Taylor Swift. Now, I'm not a real big fan of the lady's music, but man, she's incredible, right? I mean, you have to admit, she has made her stamp on the music scene. She's done it her way. And I mean, really, she is truly, I would say, my personal opinion, she's the biggest musical star in the world. But, you know, I don't know. Is there somebody else? I'm not really big on hip hop, but she is an incredible lady. And she donates so generously to causes. I've seen that on her last big Eras tour, she was donating incredible amounts of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars at every stop to food banks for people. Of course, she endorsed Kamala Harris. Most of that came on reproductive rights. Trump obviously has got a problem with her because he can't handle a strong, independent woman like he pretty much can't. You know, hey, they're too strong and too independent. I better get an immigrant so I can always send her back. You know, she can keep her on the leash, you know? So he went to social media to take on Taylor Swift. All right? Real man. You know, I'm going to have to ask super producer Stacy, because when I'm talking about Trump, I want to use the P word all the time. I mean, he is just so not what a man should be. You got a problem, you take it up with somebody. You don't go to social media, but that's his thing, right? And he said the only one that had a tougher night than the Kansas City Chiefs was Taylor Swift. She got booed out of the stadium. MAGA is very unforgiving. Where do you start? I don't know if you've seen all the pictures after Fox cut to him for about 5 seconds, saluting. We see thousands of people flipping him off, saying incredible things to him as he's walking off the field. Sometimes you just can't get away from who and what you are, right? And he left early, like we said, and she stayed till the finish of the game, like a warrior, even though her team lost. She's dating Travis Kelce, which I'm sure everybody in the world seems to know. Star tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs. And it's obviously a tough day, right? Her boyfriend, his team lost. They were trying to set NFL history. It's a tough thing. And she stayed. I saw pictures of them embracing in the suite. I'm sure there was some tears. You know, the thing about the Super Bowl is winning is such a high and losing is such a low. It's like we were the second best team, but nobody cares about who is number two, right? It's like Mitt Romney when he ran against Barack Obama in 2012. Like, in 10 years, nobody's even going to remember who that guy was. You know, it's just, that's just the way America looks at it. You come in second, you might as well come in 50th, right? So this is, and then after he got done with that cute little diatribe, he posted a video of her getting booed, which she represents the Kansas City Chiefs, and over half the crowd there was for Philadelphia Eagles. So they're not really booing her. They're booing the Chiefs. It's not really that. Let's put his fat ass in a jersey and see how that works out. Why don't you put a jersey on there? But oh, wait. They don't make one that big. Ozempic. All right. So let's not forget that he's the guy in charge. Okay? Well, when Elon Musk lets him. We have airplanes crashing, food going through the roof, and then I came across this little nugget, and it's really the reason I went down this road. Last Thursday, the President of the United States, the man who didn't have time to go 5 minutes away to the Washington runway where 67 people lost their lives, way too much, he met with Jay Monahan and Adam Scott. And I know you're looking at me going, who the F are they? Yeah. Well, if I wasn't such a sports geek, I wouldn't be able to tell you. So they are, I'm going to try and make this as simple because it gets very complicated very quick. And I know you're already being kind enough to listen. And I don't want to bore you out of your effing mind. But there's the PGA Tour, and they both are very instrumental in running it. Jay Monahan is the director of the PGA Tour, and Adam Scott represents the players. And they have had a fight going on with this other golf entity called LIV. Now, the PGA Tour has been a monopoly forever. They are the biggest and baddest tour in the world. They have the most money, they have the most sponsors, they have the best courses, they got 3 of the majors in America. They have everything going. Yeah, there's some other tours. There's Europe, Asia, Africa, but they're like AA and single A baseball compared to the major leagues, right? To give you a better understanding. So LIV comes on. Now, what is LIV? LIV is for the Roman numerals for 54, right? PGA golf tournaments, and if you don't know what a golf tournament is on TV, I commend you because you obviously have a better life than I do. They have 72 holes to decide who's going to be the victor. Only one victor. LIV decided they were going to change it up, and they go to 54 holes. Thus, the Roman numeral LIV, 54. Okay, they're really, oh man, they're shaking it up. But what they do have is the backing of the Saudi government, the Saudi Royal Fund. Now, what is that doing, John, for us? What does that mean? Well, what's happened is the Saudi government is a brutalistic, tyrannical, authoritarian, sadistic government, right? But they want the world to think they're warm and fuzzy. So how do you do that? You start getting in bed with the sports leagues because everybody likes sports, right? Let's get in bed with them. If you watch the NBA, you'll see a lot of Emirates, like the airlines, but Emirates is kind of like their name brand. Like, oh, the Saudis aren't a bad guy. Well, the Saudis decided golf was going to be a nice way to brand them as being cool, to being harmless, to being all about the people. So they took $2 billion, which for them is just chump change, and they decided they were going to start up this LIV Tour, which was going to be a threat to the PGA Tour. And the PGA Tour drew a line in the sand and said, no, we're not going to join you. We're not going to let you buy in. We got our thing, F off. All right. That's what they did. So LIV came back and they started poaching players. And they spent $200 million on one of the biggest stars in the PGA Tour, Phil Mickelson. They offered Tiger Woods supposedly $800 million to join their circuit for a couple years. They've picked off some other big names, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, who won the U.S. Open last year, Brooks Koepka. There's quite a few guys who went over there. And they've been spending money after money to brand themselves, and it's an incredible division, right? You have two pit bulls fighting each other. Now, why is Saudi Arabia doing this? The most notable incident, excuse my English, I'm just learning, ESL forever, is Jamal Khashoggi. Now, this is a gentleman that in 2017, on October 2nd, 2018, my apologies, he was a journalist and a critic of the Saudi Arabian government, MBS specifically. He's their leader. I don't know his full name, so let's just go with MBS. I know you can give me a little street cred on that one. He walked into the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, and what he was looking to get was a divorce decree. He was of Saudi origin, and so he needed the decree so he could marry his Turkish fiancée. Upon entering the consulate, now he obviously had to have paperwork processed before that. When he got in there, they brutally assaulted him and killed him. All right? Wow. How lovely is that, right? So he got this decree, and we find out later through Turkish news agencies that 15 Saudi agents descended upon the consulate 3 days before Khashoggi was there to arrive to get his decree. They dismantled all of the surveillance, the cameras, hey man, it's always happening here. Maybe that's Trump. Maybe he's got a Taylor Swift thing. And they laid in wait. He got in. Most reports were he was assaulted, killed, asphyxiated, and then they used bone saws to dismantle his body to take it out in paper bags. Just a brutal killing, right? Unfortunately for them, and this is where it gets a little crazy, he had an iWatch on, and according to most inside sources, this is a CNN thing I picked up today, or back then too, it was reported back then, that his iWatch transmitted all the audio of what happened to him, including the bone saw, because the iWatch is still going long after he's dead, right? And Turkish authorities are in possession of that audio. Well, what can you really do about it? Now you're going up against Saudi Arabia, who's best buddies with Jared Kushner and Donald Trump. All right, you got to sit on it, I guess, right? So now we're fighting between golf leagues. Just to give you a surmise, I really don't care. I know you really care even less. But I guess the thing is, so they went to the White House last Thursday to curry favor with Donald Trump to see if he could put the olive branch out to the Saudis. Trump actually, one of his golf courses in Miami is used for a LIV event, and Trump agreed that he is going to try and bridge the gap. What is the president of the United States doing on that? What do we care? Like, is that going to help me with the price of eggs? Is that going to help us with the FAA? I mean, what is the president doing here? It's insane that he is spending his precious time tweeting about Taylor Swift and trying to adjudicate some type of agreement between Liv and the PGA Tour. It's rich people problems. Really? That's what we're doing? Okay. That's what the president is doing. Elon Musk is taking care of everything else. Don't you fret about that, right? It's just insane that this is what the president of the United States is dealing with. All right. I'm going to go to some odd headlines before I finish up with the final story. Protester at the Super Bowl halftime show who put the Sudan flag and the Free Gaza flag out on the car. He was arrested but not charged. Banned from life from NFL games. But after seeing this Super Bowl, isn't that actually a good thing? I don't have to go to these stupid things. Point 2, Trump says J.D. Vance isn't his successor. We all have to see, he says. Maybe we can ask Mike Pence how that works out after 4 years of loyalty. And let's make no mistake. Trump said numerous times he thinks he can run for a third term. Can't name the successor if I'm still going to be the king. Yep. Third point, Trump also raised tariffs on Monday night on aluminum and steel. His latest salvo in the trade war escalation. I'm sure it'll be a story we get to. Finally, in the odd headlines, Elon Musk reportedly offered $97.4 billion for OpenAI. Sam Altman, who owns OpenAI, or is the leader of OpenAI, I guess would be a better term, ChatGPT, said, thanks, but no thanks, Chuck. And the number really kind of amazed me. That number came out of Politico. Why, when they offer money, do they always put like 0.4 or like when you have sports contracts? I'll give you an example. The New York Mets had a player. They bought him out. They restructured his deal. And his name is Bobby Bonilla. It's a real famous sports deal. They're paying Bobby Bonilla $1,193,248.20 a year until 2035. How do you get to these numbers? Like, when you're negotiating for OpenAI, don't you just say 100 billion or 98 billion? Who goes to the 0.4? I mean, really, what is that? It's like if you buy a house, and I should have asked super producer Stacy about this because she knows everything about houses. When you buy a house and you make an offer, and maybe I'm missing it. I know there's cutouts and allowances and stuff like that, but do people come in and go, that's a $400,000 house. You know what I'm going to offer? I'm going to offer $396,422.08. I mean, I wonder what the real estate agent would do. They're like, oh my God, what the F is going on here? Why do we get these real odd numbers? I mean, is it fees? Are we trying to cover brokerage? What are we doing there? Why doesn't he just offer $100 billion? I mean, really? I guess you look like a more shrewd buyer if you put the 0.4432444. It looks like an algorithm. Jesus Christ. I guess that's what they do. That's it. So finally, we're going to come to the last disconcerting story of the night. And this is the battle between the executive branch and the judiciary. So this is how it traditionally works. I know you all do know this, but the executive branch basically, I know there's exceptions, but just stay with me here, makes the laws. They propose laws. The legislature passes them, funds them, and the judiciary reviews them to see if they are in compliance with the Constitution. Now, sometimes, it comes out for the Republicans. Sometimes it comes out for the Democrats. There's cases both sides decry, right? Citizens United in 2012, where The Republican Supreme Court said that people can give unlimited dark money to campaigns, I think was a big, bad one. But, Roe v. Wade, all the conservatives hated that. And then they got it back with Dobbs. It ebbs and flows, okay? That's just how it is. But the one thing that's always happened is they abide by the rulings when it finally gets adjudicated at a high federal court or district court or even the Supreme Court. They go, okay, that's it. End of story. That doesn't seem to be where we are with this new Trump administration. There's a lot of doubts going on right now whether Elon and the rest of the boys, hooligans I'll call them, will abide by court rulings. Specifically, Monday, a federal judge in Rhode Island who ruled that stopping the funding for USAID was illegal. Now, basically what's happening here is Trump is going into these departments, he's going into these things and saying, yeah, I'm going to cut all the funding, even though it has been appropriated by the legislator in a budget bill. Okay? For all the Republicans out here, here's what I want to say. If we had Barack Obama and he said, the Defense Department, I'm not going to fund it, what would you say? It's a bill that's been passed. It's been funded. It's been appropriated, and it's been agreed upon. Nah, I don't want the Defense Department to get any money. Can you imagine what an S-fit that would be? Oh my God. OMG. And I hate using that term, but my gosh. This is what Trump has basically done. Now, my question is, if you don't really like it, get you and your Republican buddies in the Congress and the Senate and don't fund it next year. Oh, can't do that because there's too many Republicans who like USAID. So the federal judge ruled last week that they had violated the plain text of the congressional funding. Again, a week later, he comes back, this was yesterday, that they violated again his order to reinstate funding. Now, the DOJ, who's run by the wonderfully talented Pam Bondi, I think I saw her at Cheetah's the other night, making a little extra cash, is fighting the cases and says in an official directive that the president should have the authority to run the government the way he wants. Well, isn't that a king? Isn't that tyranny? You can run things you want, but there's rules. This guy doesn't want any rules. And he has everybody around him saying there's no rules for me. I am the king. This isn't like, Larry, the guy out, the Wiz. I am the king. So the Justice Roberts of the Supreme Court saw this coming down the pipe. Now, he is a Republican who was nominated to the Chief Justice seat by George Bush, right? So this isn't some liberal guy. He said at the end of December, elected officials from across the political spectrum have raised the specter of open disregard. This is Elon Musk, right? For federal court rulings, these dangerous suggestions must be soundly rejected. You're also the guy who sat on the Supreme Court and said the president has total immunity for any presidential act. You're part of this. You built this Frankenstein. And now you're scared because you've run a corrupt court where Scalia, where Thomas, where Alito, where Gorsuch are raking in tens of millions of dollars under the table and not reporting them. Clarence Thomas, his wife's over there helping the January 6th people, and they don't report it. Ethics violations up the wazoo. And then when they get caught, they go, oh, yeah, I got to re-amend that. Tax return from 4 years ago. Yeah, me and you, we'd have bracelets on. Yeah, we would. So in 1789, the United States government started the creation of the three branches of government, right? Like we talked about, the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And they all kind of keep each other in check. Even though now, when we're looking at the judicial branch, they're kind of like a cuckold for the president, right? They're Republicans in the House. The Republicans control the Senate, and they do whatever the president. Even if the president wants to cut funding for stuff they funded, they're like, oh, well, I'm not going to say nothing. I don't want to get on his bad side. I don't want him to tweet about me. Oh, my God, right? Also, among the duties that Trump agreed to in his swearing in at the inauguration is Article 2 of the Constitution. And that says, shall take care that the laws of this land be faithfully executed. You know, that means when the court comes down with the decision, you're going to do it. As of this podcast, USA funding had not been reinstated. Okay? We're going to see what happens here. Let's go to our next winner of the night. J.D. Vance on X said, judges aren't allowed to control the executive branch's legitimate power. They are when they abuse the Constitution. Get your head out of your butt, dude. J.D. Vance also says in a previously stated 2021 podcast, I don't know, is this run by the KKK? That Trump should respond to adverse decisions like Andrew Jackson did and say, the Chief Justice has made his ruling. Now let him enforce it. And that's the thing. That's what's made our democracy so great. Why do we have the best country in the world? Because we do have checks and balances. It's not unfettered power. Is because when there's a ruling, even if it's against you, you sit there and go, okay, we're going to faithfully execute it. We're going to use the marshals. We're going to use law enforcement. Because the court doesn't have any ability to enforce things. They rely on the rest of government to enforce what they say. Trump's trying to break that lever. You know, okay, you ruled it. Okay, where are you going to get your marshals? Where are you going to get your court servants? We're the ones who fund it. So Trump, on Monday night, told Mark Levin, judges should be ruling. They shouldn't be dictating what you're supposed to be doing. When you violate the Constitution, they sure as hell do. So basically, you only accept the rulings that are for you, for your party. Yeah, it's going to make for a great democracy. You know, a lot of times I see these people out there, and they're talking about democracy is being threatened, and I really think about it. Robert Reich, love that guy. Dude is brilliant, and he's a very, very progressive guy. And I'll listen to him, and he's talking about the threat to democracy, and I think, you know, is it really? And then you see things like this. We're 3 weeks in, and they're not enforcing judicial rulings. They're not abiding by them. And I think, you know, a lot of times I think there's a big overreaction on the left, but this is serious stuff. This guy is John Gotti, man. This guy is Carlos Gambino. He's just doing what he wants. He's enriching himself, and he doesn't care what he has to do. He doesn't care about the United States. This is the guy who pardoned 1,600 rioters, who injured and assaulted 174 cops. Let's not forget that today, right? So Vance was a graduate of Yale Law School. His wife, Usha, who's Indian, immigrant? Guess she's okay, though, right? She was a law clerk for Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, at the Supreme Court in 2017 to 2018. And it's amazing how people have values and morals until they get power, and then they just forget about them. It's all about acquiring more power, because it's like Mitch McConnell said, and it's so true. Winners write laws, losers go home and pout. I hate Mitch McConnell, but he's pretty smart about that. All right. If you could, please hit the like and subscribe button and leave your comments. I love y'all, and I'll see you tomorrow.